Today on Beauty and the Babble, we have Michael Chernow. He is the founder of Kreatures of Habit, co-founder of the Meatball Shop, founder of Seamore's, and he has the most interesting story from a troubled past to being the most regimented, most entrepreneurial spirit, and into spirituality. Welcome, Michael.
Very, very stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. We virtually met years ago, and it's come full circle. So I would love for you to kick off by, telling us who is Michael. You could take us from the beginning.
Who is Michael? Well, I guess my story, I guess I should just start from the beginning. I grew up in New York City. And I grew up in a small apartment with a super loving mom and a pretty angry dad. My dad was, I think some people are born to have children.
Yeah.
And have the ability to lead and love. And some people just aren't,
Yeah.
And I do know that my father loved me, but he just was not meant to have children. He was a sick guy, physically and also mentally, and I believe because of his mental illness, just unbelievably selfish.
Yeah.
And so that made for a really tough father-son relationship because I was kind of in his way and he didn't want anybody in his way. And so we butted heads from basically the womb, right? It was just rough. He was not a great father. And so that led me to want to escape. I didn't feel safe and I wanted out and I wanted to get out and as often as and as much as possible. And so I kind of figured out that I could once I got, into elementary school, I figured out that I could sleep at friends' houses if I wanted to, and so that's what I would do. I would try to make my, my friends' parents like me and allow me to sleep over. And I think honestly, subconsciously, I'm sure my mother probably didn't want me to sleep out as much as I did at that young age. But I do believe that my mom probably in her subconscious or just a voice that she didn't really want to believe, but believed was it was safer for me, not in that apartment. And it was tight. It was close quarters. It was 600 square foot apartment, 650 square foot apartment. And my sister and I shared a bedroom. My parents slept in the dining room on a Murphy bed. It was just tight quarters.
Yeah.
My dad was kind of like a hoarder. It was rough. And so I just decided that I wasn't gonna allow that to be my life. And so
in elementary school, you decided that.
Yeah, I just knew that I didn't want to be there. And so I got it. After school, my mom worked and my dad really had no interest in picking, my dad was on permanent disability. He was sick, so he couldn't work.
What was he sick with?
So he was a juvenile diabetic. And in those days, type 1 diabetic.
Yeah.
And so he was injecting insulin from basically 5 or 6 years old, And I think that really fucked him up. Because it prevented him from doing a lot of things, from eating the way all the other kids can eat, from playing the sports that all the other kids could play at the level that he wanted to play at because he was an athlete. But it also, they didn't have nearly the research on diabetes then than they do now. And it was kind of like being delivered basically a death sentence almost, right? It was your life expectancy.
It's so different back then.
So different. And so he had to have juvenile diabetes, and it affected his whole body. Now he didn't take great care of himself, so that was something that he did have choice over, and he definitely did not choose to exercise or eat right. He was pretty haphazard that way, but it affected his heart, and so he had multiple heart attacks in his late 30s and. By the time by 1990, I guess he died at 57.
So young to die.
Super young. He went on permanent disability in 1990, which meant that he didn't work and he stayed at home and he locked himself into his little corner. And so he just didn't have, he was not involved in my life at all.
Yeah.
Outside of seeing him and fighting with him at home. So I got put into after school programs and sports, and I really dove into sports, and a bunch of funky shit happened to me at that point in my life. But really, like, I kept on doing that until I got to an age where I started to feel like I could start making decisions that would allow me to escape from this without having to sleep at friends' houses, which was ultimately like started smoking cigarettes in 5th grade, and then smoking weed, and then once I was like 12, 13, my father and I were like full-fledged battling, fist fighting.
Yeah.
Child services were involved, like all sorts of shit was going down. But I also, like, I'd sliced my wrist, and I got put in this mental institution to get evaluated. It was like spiraling out of control pretty quick.
So your father was abusive at home.
Mhm.
You were looking for outlets to escape, including cutting yourself. That was
Mhm.
probably a cry for help and
100%.
to, find some sort of reprieve. I guess how I'm not gonna say how did you make it stop because it continued, but then from listening to your podcast, then you got into selling drugs and using them. Could you
Mhm.
take me through that?
Yeah, so when I was around 12, I guess, summer between, I think, 6th and 7th grade was the first time I smoked weed. And that I felt like, oh boy, like this is it.
Yeah.
I don't like I figured out how to escape without having to go anywhere. And so I really latched onto that. And then, weed turned into all sorts of party drugs over the next 6 months, whatever. And then by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was like full-fledged addict. And it got worse and worse. And I was selling drugs, I was using drugs. I'd moved out of my parents' house in my sophomore year of high school. I was 15, and once I was out on my own, like legitimately out on my own, like did not ever come home to my parents' house, I was kind of off to the races.
And how old were you then?
15.
15.
Yeah.
So 15 you were out.
Out.
And you were supporting yourself by selling drugs.
Yeah.
And I assume you were probably making a lot of money.
But I was also working in restaurants. So
You're
like
working in restaurants.
so I got a job in a restaurant when I was 12 delivering food.
Yeah.
And then they put me in the kitchen, and then I got put out on the floor as a busboy. So I always did have like a legitimate job.
Yeah.
All through high school, I worked in restaurants and nightclubs. And so there was this legitimate component, and that was really because I actually really enjoyed the nightlife, and I enjoyed being in there at night as always the youngest kid, and like I just felt like it was just like a cool thing to do, and I was making money, but I was making more money selling drugs for sure.
And so then I heard, and you will go into it, you had this boss that was very pivotal in your life, and I'm gonna even go as far to say sobriety. I guess, tell me about the time when you hit rock bottom. So you're working in this restaurant, you're selling drugs, you're doing a bunch of different drugs, and your life started to spiral. Your friends started to be really concerned about you, and you felt like you were losing your friends. Take me through that time before ultimately and when you hit rock bottom.
Yeah, so I mean, through my teens into my early 20s, the party drugs became far less frequent, and it became way more about like the marriage of cocaine and alcohol. Like that's kind of where it ended for me. And then at the very end, opioids became a part, and that's when it was just like a quick, like 6 months I OD'd. And
what did you OD on?
Heroin.
Heroin,
Yeah.
damn.
And so that was just like some of the darkest days. Between like 22 and 23, I was getting into an enormous amount of fistfights. I really didn't care. I worked at this restaurant, but it was kind of like okay for me to drink and use drugs there. A lot of us did. And then I had overdosed in the summer of 2004, in July of 2004. And I was with this girl, and her and I would just like literally hold each other hostage in an apartment and use heroin together. And I OD'd with her. She was terrified. I kind of remember like coming to her and being like, please call the ambulance. I'm
Oh
dying.
my God.
And she was just too scared. And so she dragged me into the bathroom and got me into the bathtub. And I remember being on my back in the bathtub. She turned on the cold water, and the cold water was just like hitting me in the face. And I was like coming in and out. But I
She
knew
wouldn't call 911.
she was scared. Yeah.
I'm gonna find her and beat her up.
Yeah. She was scared. And she's sober now too. And we actually like, I'm so grateful that she's sober. I'm obviously happy I didn't die that day.
Yeah.
But I was this close. You know, it was like this close to death. And I remember walking out of that apartment. It was in the afternoon, a super hot day in the summer of 2004 in the East Village, far East Village. And I was walking on 13th Street from like Avenue C to B after this experience where I was saying to myself, Michael, like, how could you have letting it got this bad? Like,
Yeah.
how can you literally overdose? You just overdosed and you didn't die. Like, has to be it. This has to be it. You've got a second chance. And then I was like, I'm done. I am fucking done. And then 4 hours later, I couldn't control it, and I was using again. And
The same stuff.
yeah. And so I kind of made a decision at that point that this is how I'm going to die. And I don't know what to do. Like, I don't have the strength to stop. And so that's it. Like, I'm going to try to make it as fast and as furious as possible. So I literally went on like a 2-week death march.
Bender.
Just hard, you know? And I was like, I'm going to just do that. I'm going to do it. And then hopefully.
Do it meaning die or do it meaning drugs?
Both.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to do the drugs until I die because I can't figure out another way to stop it. And I knew that I wanted to stop. Like, I knew even before the overdose, like, I knew where I was. I knew where I was in my life, but it had its grips around me.
And you were 22 at this time? 23?
23.
23.
Yeah. And so I sort of, I was on like a 3-day straight, no sleep bender at the end of that 2-week period. It was a Monday morning.
That alone will kill you.
I know.
Let alone the drugs, no sleep.
Yeah. And like the guys that I were with were finally like, we're calling it, man. It's gone too long. Like, we're done.
Yeah.
And luckily those two guys are still friends of mine. One of them is sober. One of them is not sober, but has figured out a way to not be as bad as he was. But I had gotten down to my apartment because we were on my roof, and I remember just catching a glimpse of myself in the mirror walking into my bedroom, and I kind of stopped, and I was like, I fucking hate you. Like, you deserve to die. Like, I hate you. I do not appreciate, do not like the person I see. Like, in my head, I was just like, you are the most despicable piece of shit. In the mirror looking at myself. Yeah. And I was like, you should just jump out the window, dude. Like, you really don't have, like, there's nothing left. Like, you're useless. And somehow, some way, I didn't jump out the window, and I blacked out, and I woke up 16 hours later. I'd slept through work, and my boss, you know, everybody was trying to get a hold of me. And my boss, you know, everybody basically thought I was dead, you know. And so when I finally came to, I called up my boss, and he's like, you know, you got to come to the restaurant. And I came to the restaurant, and he was like, you're fired, man. I love you, Mikey, but, like, I can't.
How long were you working for him at this point?
3 years.
Oh, so he's like a father.
Yeah. He was.
I had a boss growing up that was like my father.
Yeah.
And that was like my escape to go work at this restaurant.
Yeah, he really, he like looked at me, and he was like, dude, I love you, man, but I cannot watch. You're dying. Everyone around you knows it. You know it. I can't pay you to do that. Like, I can't have it happen on my dime. You need to go get your life together. Like,
yeah. Well, he probably felt like a certain level of guilt. Like, the money he's paying you was like straight up going to drugs, and he loved you so much, and he wants what's best for you. And he was like, you know, like a father, like cutting off the spigot.
Yeah. So he gave me I begged him for my job, because my job literally was like the only thing tethering me back to like life.
Yeah.
To anything real or meaningful. Every other aspect of my life was really negative and dark. And so I begged him, and he finally said, look, man, like, if you come to the restaurant in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and you agree to clean the restaurant with the porters and get sober, I'll consider like helping you out down the road. But right now, like that's all I'm willing to offer you. Like I will not have you in this place at night. Just can't do it. Like like if something terrible would happen, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Like you need to get sober. And so that's exactly what I did. Like that was the last day I drank. It was the last day I used drugs. I like reached out to a friend. That friend reached out to her boyfriend who was sober. Her boyfriend met me that night. That guy listened to me for 4 hours and like listened to me tell my story and sat with me. And I just knew. I don't know what it was, but God came into my life and just somehow gave me this path to change.
And from that point, you never touched drugs or alcohol again.
No.
Holy shriekies. Okay, so I want to ask a couple of questions about this. Obviously, your boss gave you an ultimatum and you realized the only thing that was real and meaningful in your life was about to end. And it meant a lot to you. And he effectively gave you this ultimatum. But aside from the ultimatum, obviously, you felt like the feeling God came to you. What did it take mentally? And what did you tell yourself? And how I mean, I know it was a long time ago at this point, but how did you stop? I know you say God, but I think I like to say luck favors the prepared mind. And by that meaning, it's just like there's stuff that went into it that set you up for this. So obviously part of it was like your self-talk in the mirror. Part of it was your boss. Like what did you, and I know we'll get into your bodybuilding and biohacking, but like what, I guess, sort of habits did you form? How did you break the old ones? How did you force yourself to stop? And also, like, there's a withdrawal as well.
So if I get asked today, whether it's business advice, life advice, any advice, relationship advice, any kind of advice, my number one piece of advice that I can give anybody is when in doubt, ask for help.
I like that.
That's it. When in doubt, ask for help. Ask for as much help as you can possibly fathom, and then more. Because we, as human beings, for whatever reason, don't naturally gravitate towards asking for help.
Yeah.
And that moment for me was probably the first time, even though I knew I needed help, I had asked for it.
Yeah.
And so just by asking for help, the stars just went, and I met these two guys through my friend Karen. It's so funny. So I talk about Karen Bernstein. I'm going to say her name here. I haven't spoken to her in years. And someone was listening to a podcast that I was on. And I had said, yes, my old friend Karen. And I didn't say her last name because, I just didn't want to like put her on blast like that. But now that she had reached out to me, I'm comfortable saying her last name.
Shout out to Karen.
Karen Bernstein, lifesaver. But I called, so Karen I was a bar back at this nightclub when I was like 16, 17, and 18 in New York called Life. And Karen was like the hottest bartender there.
Yeah, Karen.
And so of course my 16-year-old like little, New York City kid like ass was like, I want to get to know Karen.
Yeah, she seems really cool.
But Karen knew my situation. She's like, what is some 16-year-old kid doing working in this place, But she took me in as like a younger brother. And I looked at her eventually as like an older sister. Yeah. So like when I was down
eventually.
Yeah, like once I realized that there was no way I was hooking up with Karen, I was like, all right, she's gonna be my sister.
If I can have her like that, I'll have her as a sister.
Yeah. And so she basically, like anytime I was down and out, like if I got kicked out of I would sleep at people's apartments on their couch or whatever. If I got kicked out or if I, did something bad and came to, I would like call Karen. I'd be like, hey, can I crash? And she'd be like, of course, you come crash at my place. She always took me in. And when I finally got sober, or finally was ready to ask for help, she was the first person I called because I knew that she was sober at the time and her boyfriend was sober. And And so when I called her, she was like, I'm calling Marcus. And she sent Marcus right over.
And that was the guy who spoke with you for 4 hours.
And that's how it happened. It happened so quick. Like
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick example of how it kind of almost has to work, right? So with Creatures of Habit, which we'll get into, I raise money the company raises money through a charity event that we do every year, where I get people to participate in an event, like a fitness event, where we do this ruck down in the bottom of Manhattan and into Brooklyn, and we put on these weight vests, custom weight vests, and we walk this 9-mile route that I used to run when I first got sober, like within that first year. It was when I really started to get my feet underneath me, and fitness became a massive part of my life. And
so that was the next chapter, your fitness chapter.
Yeah. So like fitness really, I'll get back to that, but basically, I raise money to get addicts that are willing and ready for treatment from the street into facilities that don't have the cash to support it. So last year we raised $75,000.
Wow.
This year we've so far put 6 people into treatment, fully covered, transportation, 28 to 6 month treatment stretches, and save their lives. I'm the one that does it. I blast out on social media, hey, if you're struggling or you know someone that's struggling, I am here today to tell you that I will pay for your treatment. DM me right now. I will have a car to pick you up today. I have the space. I have the capital. If you want treatment and you're ready and you don't have the money for it, I will pay for your treatment.
It's amazing.
And so people have been, being like, hey, I'm ready. And so literally what happens so what happens is when somebody reaches out to me and says, I'm ready, I literally am like, are you ready right now? This moment. Are you ready to go? And if they're like, well, I'm like, look, it's not a tomorrow thing. Because tomorrow I'm going to lose you.
Yeah.
I'm ready for you right now. I will have a car at your house in an hour. Like,
holy
and we've gotten people just like somebody calls. I'm like, okay, cool. I call Zach. Zach gets his team on it. They get the car, they get the facility, it all happens. And it has to happen like that, because for an addict, there's very, very small moments of grace where you can feel that ability to just say, fuck it, I'm gonna try. I know what I'm doing is wrong. I'm killing myself and I've lost everything in my life. And it's so hard for them to see that. But there's these little glimmers of hope.
Yeah.
And so for me, I called Karen. She called Marcus. Marcus was with me that night, and Marcus sat with me. And I, at that time, didn't know shit about sobriety. I didn't know anything outside of, I thought I was going to live the most boring life ever. I was like, I'm never going to have sex with a girl again. I have no idea what I'm going to be hanging out in libraries with old people, smoking cigarettes, And I was like, that's not what I want for my life. I had no idea how good sobriety is, like zero clue. I mean, sobriety for me is just like the absolute best thing ever. But so Marcus came to the rescue. This dude, like, he showed up covered in tattoos, jacked. He was like,
I swear I didn't touch Karen.
and he was like, I'm sober and I'm gonna help you, kid. And he was probably 10 years older than me. And I looked at this guy and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this dude, I'd want to hang out with this guy. Like, I want to hang out with this guy. This guy wants to give me a piece of
he was like a role model and he seemed cool. So it was like, oh, not so bad sobriety.
Right. So he basically wrote me a plan, and he told me to do a few things, but the plan that he wrote me was very simple. He was like, if you can do this, you're going to be happy and successful without drugs and alcohol. If you don't do this, that's cool too. I'm not going to chase you, but chances of you relapsing or like dying are just far greater because you're knocking on death's door right now, kid. Yeah. And I was like, okay, what is it? And he's like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to wake up as early as you can every morning. And as soon as you wake up, I want you to go into the bathroom. I want you to wash your face, actually. I want you to brush your teeth, actually. I want you to floss your teeth, actually. Put in your contacts, take a piss, and then get on your knees and ask God for help. And I was like, I don't know anything about asking God for help, but like if that's what I have to do,
Yeah, I'll
Like,
do it.
I'm in. And then he said, right after you do that, I want you to walk out into your bedroom. I want you to put on a pair of sneakers, and I want you to go for a walk right away. Just get outside and go for a walk.
Sunlight.
Yeah, and he was like, that could be a walk, that could be a jog, it could be a block, it could be 10 miles, but I want you to get outside immediately and go move your body a little bit. And then as soon as you get back from that walk, I want you to have a big bowl of oatmeal.
Oh my gosh, that's where the oatmeal comes in?
Mm-hmm.
Stop.
Yeah. And he said, I want you to have a big bowl of oatmeal because it's inexpensive, it's accessible, it's healthy, and it's satiating. So right away, you take your walk, you come back, you have a big bowl of oatmeal. And he gave me all these different things that he puts in his oatmeal. And he was like, you can put honey in it or maple syrup, or you could put nuts and seeds or whatever you want to put in it, you could put in it. Make sure it's tasty and just eat a big bowl of oatmeal every morning. And then go straight to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, get your hand up and tell them who you are and why you're there. And then right after that meeting, go straight to the Muay Thai gym, and I'm gonna teach you martial arts, and I'm gonna train with you, and I'm gonna kick your fucking ass and show you how to be a man. And I was
Okay,
like,
Marcus.
yeah, basically is what he said. And then he said, right after that, you're gonna have chicken and broccoli, and then you're gonna take a nap, and then you're gonna go to work, and you're gonna have chicken and broccoli again for dinner, and then you're gonna go to bed as early as possible.
This guy.
And that's basically what he said, and he was not joking. And like, at that point in my life, like I finally felt.
And
I
it's that love you crave, like the
That's it,
discipline
that's it.
from someone caring.
I wanted to make this man happy. I wanted to
Yeah.
impress him. I wanted him to tell me I was a good guy. I wanted him to tell me like, you're awesome. And so that's what I needed. And that's what I did. And I immediately like transitioned from being a legit alcoholic, crack smoking, heroin using, lifeless human to, over the course of, it was a day at a time, but over the course of 3 months, a completely different person.
Quite literally overnight.
Like a completely different person. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I dove deep into fitness and nutrition, and I became passionate about Muay Thai kickboxing. I became passionate about running, and I started, I went to Thailand and I trained there, and I did all this stuff. And after 8 months of sobriety, I met this woman who is now my wife.
Oh my gosh.
And when I met her, like when I'm telling you, still, but like then for sure, she was like way, way out of my league. Like I'm working at this restaurant and this like tall, insanely beautiful woman walks in with another insanely beautiful woman and 2 dudes. And I like, they're with dudes. I'm like, oh, whatever. Okay. Like there was beautiful women all the time in the restaurant that I worked at. But they went in for dinner, and then like an hour and a half later, the guys left. And 5 minutes later, 5 minutes later, the Donna and Linda came to sit at the bar. And I'm like, what's happening here? I'm like, this is crazy. But I'm running with it, And they hung out with me all night. And I had no choice. I had to like, I was like, I was like, you have to, like, I have to hang out with you. Like I was like, this is like we just gelled. And actually it was her. So the only reason why I know this is because her birthday is on April 25th.
Oh.
And it was April 23rd. And she was like, my birthday is on Saturday. And I was like, oh guys, let me take you out for dinner for your birthday. I was like, and she's like, do you not think I have plans on my birthday? And I was like,
Never know.
I was like, all right, well, I'm off tomorrow. Why don't you let me take you out for a late dinner tomorrow, and then we'll celebrate your birthday at midnight.
Oh.
And that'll be us celebrating your birthday together. You can go home and have your birthday with your friends, but at least I get to take you out on your birthday. And she was like, clever. Okay. And I was like, let's go. And so I met her, and I took her out the next night. We had an unbelievable, but like, what I guess the point of the story is, 8 months before that, I was dead.
Would have never imagined you
Right.
then meet your wife and you'd be in a really good place. And we're gonna later, because I saw something on your Instagram, about you guys have been together 19 years?
19 years.
19 years. So I want to circle back on that because that's so beautiful. And it seems like you guys have so much love and are amazing parents. I listened to some of your interviews and I was like, oh my God, it's like the cutest thing ever. I want to get into, I want to focus on Creatures of Habit, but I obviously it didn't just come up out of nowhere. You know, you were co-founder of the Meatball Shop. You started Seamore's, which is sustainable seafood. I would like you to touch upon like these, obviously they're, I guess it's not obvious to people listening, but they're both restaurants. So obviously that's your niche from all the jobs you've had and what you seem to gravitate to. So I would love to talk about how you got into that and then when you started Creatures of Habit, which FYI for everyone listening, he sells the most amazing oatmeal, which is now we know where it comes from, and with amazing macros, which we'll also get into. But let's start with your two first business ventures and then all about Creatures of Habit, then your beautiful wife.
So once I was like kind of into the groove of living my life a very different way, I wanted to ask Donna to marry me like a year after we met. I was like, I know this is the right one. And when I was thinking about that, I was like, I just can't have, like, I can't be, in my opinion at that stage of my life, like I knew that I had a lot in the tank to offer because I had wasted 10 years, right? And I was like, I want to do so much. And I'm going to ask this woman to marry me, but I can't bartend. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be the bartender husband, you know? Like, I just didn't want to do that. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
But like for me, I felt like there was, I knew the business. I knew I was good at it. And at that point I had the confidence because of how drastic my life had changed that I was going to go out and fucking do it myself.
Right. It must have given you this courage. Like I could do anything.
So that's one point that I think is important to mention. Like, as an alcoholic or a drug addict in recovery, what you not only does your life get better because you're away from the substance, but what you begin to understand is that like you can do anything. Like committing to getting sober is hard as hell.
Yeah, probably the hardest.
One of the hardest things. But once you realize that you can do that, you can apply it to every other area in your life.
Yes.
Like I know today that if something comes out of my mouth that I say I'm going to do, I am going to fucking do it or die trying.
I fucking love that. To be a guy of your word, gentlemen listening, be a guy of your word. It's not that hard, or just don't say it.
Yeah.
Drives me up a wall.
Right. So it's either like you can think about things all day long and you can think about what you want to do or think about doing something. But for me, once it actually passes my lips, there's no doubt about it. I am going to do it or die trying.
Yeah.
And so I just knew that, you know, I was going to ask her to marry me. I started thinking about what the future looked like. And I was like, I'm going to have my own restaurant. That's it. And I told Donna, I said, babe, I'm going to have my own restaurant. And so I'm going to ask Frank.
She's your muse.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Well, the other thing about that was really healthy about our relationship too is that like I think what was healthy about our relationship, I would argue to say one of the more healthy things was that I was also working a lot and she was working a ton, like a ton. And so she was always traveling, you know, like all over the world. And so we had this healthy separation in the beginning of our relationship for like the first 5-6 years. You know, her career was like flying off the handles when we met. And, you know, I was just getting going. So anyway, I said so I was still working at Frank, and I took Frank aside one day and I said, hey man, can I, you know, grab you for an hour to talk to you about something that I want to ask you about? And he's like, yeah, sure. He's like, well, come to my loft and we'll have a coffee. So I went over to his place and I was like, look, man, you know, I was 25 and I was like, I want to open up my own restaurant. Like, I know that I'm newly sober-ish because I'd only been sober about 1.5 years or so. But I was like, man, like, I know this is what I'm going to do. I know this is what I'm going to do. And he looked at me and he was like, I love you. I just don't know if you have that in you.
Damn.
Yeah. And that lit a fire under my fucking ass. Like, you know, like,
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah. No, it was the best thing he ever did. But like, as I was leaving, he was like, but, you know, if you really want to do it seriously, you should go to culinary school. Like, don't just go try to open up a restaurant. He's like,
It's probably good advice.
yeah. He was like, go to culinary school. So that night, I applied to culinary school. And I was in culinary school at the next semester opening. And I spent the next 2 years in culinary school, and I also got a degree in restaurant management. And so when I was done with that, I was 27, and I spent about 8 months writing a business plan. And then I put that business plan in front of all the regulars at Frank Restaurant. The people that had been coming there for years, that watched me go from a drug addict to sober to married to a man.
Yeah.
And 14 of them wrote me a check.
Stop. I just got the chills.
Mhm.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So a bunch of those guys wrote me a check, and that's when I opened up the Meatball Shop. And the Meatball Shop was like, just
I've been to the Meatball Shop. Some freaking good meatballs.
some good meatballs. And it was really like it was kind of a unicorn business. I mean, we opened the doors and it was gangbusters, crazy. And so much so that one of the original investors, we paid our investors back in 6 months. They were all fired up about that. And then one of them was like, I want to open up 5 more. And Daniel and I were like, holy shit. He's like, I'll commit to giving you $3.5 million.
Damn.
Let's open up 5 more of these things. And so Dan and I, we began that journey, and we scaled the business, and we had hard times, Dan and I, but ultimately we did a really good job. And then in 2014 I knew that it was gonna, like, Dan and I were not seeing eye to eye on how to scale the thing, how to take it out of market, and like a number of different decisions that we just really could not meet on. And I was like, you know what, before I like destroy this business and destroy our friendship, because we're childhood best friends,
Yeah.
I was like, let me step back, because I know he's not going to step back. And I knew that, like, if I can get a nice valuation and take some cash off the table, it would give me an opportunity to like feel good about the decision to leave, and then open up a restaurant without any partners.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And I sold equity in 2014. I opened up Seamore's in June of 2015 without partners. And the same exact thing happened with Seamore's. Crazy gangbusters, best restaurant in New York Magazine.
It's not easy to have so many restaurants are hot the first 3 months, especially in New York, the hot new place, then they're done.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it was a pretty epic sort of like, part 2 for me. And about a year and a half in, I almost immediately people were like, I want to help you grow it. And this one guy who was a mentor of mine for years, as I was building Meatball Shop, was running La Pen Quotidienne.
Yeah.
And he had really scaled that company from like 200 units to like 1,200. The guy opened like 1,000 restaurants, and he was like, I want to help you do it. And I was staving him off for a while. I was like, Jay, dude, I just got out of a tough partnership. Like, you're my senior. You're way more experienced than I do. Like, I could never be your boss. And if you were to come and work with me, like, you would have to be kind of my boss. And I just don't know how I'd feel about that. But eventually it got to a point where he was like, hey man, like, I really think that this is a strong brand, and I'm ready to scale it with you. And like, you could be, make me the CEO or not, like, we could scale this thing together. And I was like, well, you couldn't be here without being the CEO.
Yeah.
Like, he would have to be the guy, because it wouldn't make sense for me to be his boss. And so basically I said, look, I'm going to take the president and chairman role. You come on as the CEO. We agree to scale this thing for the next 4 years. We try to get the revenues up to $20 to $30 million. And then I sell you some of my equity so that I can go create again. And we agreed to that. And that is exactly what we did.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're an animal.
That's exactly what we did.
Okay.
And then
drum roll.
It worked. And then in 2019, I sold equity and began the process for my next thing, which is now Creatures of Habit. And Creatures of Habit, I love the restaurants. I will always love the restaurant business. Chances are I end up opening another restaurant at some point in my life. But Creatures of Habit.
Do it out here, please.
Mm-hmm. Creatures is like a real extension of who I am.
Yeah.
It's fitness. I mean, sobriety, of course, above all, but fitness, nutrition, mindset saved and saves my life on a daily basis. It just does. And I'm not me without it. And it makes me me, and gives me freedom, and it gives me serenity. And I know that I wanted to create a brand that told that story, that anybody can change at any time, no matter what. It doesn't matter how far gone you think you are, whether that's with, weight or addiction or depression or really anything that makes you feel unworthy. It doesn't matter how far gone you are, you can change.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. And so Creatures, because I'm a living example of that. Like I am a changed man and have been for almost 20 years. So with consistency, and habit, you can have anything you want. It's going to take time, of course, but you can have anything you want.
Would you say some habits, even though they felt uncomfortable at first, you forced and drilled down to create those new habits?
Yeah. Well, I think so. The way I kind of look at the sort of journey of like habit is basically, at first it's a chore. There's no doubt.
Of course.
It's a chore, like you're a kid and your mom is like, you got to go you got to go clean your bedroom.
Yeah.
No kid wants to do that. Eventually, as we get older, like if we are smart or, whatever, like we clean up our rooms.
Make the goddamn bed.
Yeah, you make the bed, like it's like that's what you do. And so they always start as chores. Some are harder than others, eliminating, fast food probably for a lot of people is a tough thing to do.
The chore, not doing something too.
Right. It becomes like very tough. And so I kind of look at the journey as it's a chore, and it could be a chore for weeks to a couple of months where it's still really, really hard. But then that chore ultimately, if you're consistent with it, just gets easier and becomes now a habit.
Creates new neural pathways, breaks old ones.
Right. The habit phase can be from weeks or months to a couple of years where it's just like it's still a habit. It's not, like when you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth. That's not really a habit. It's just part of your lifestyle. Most people do that, right? It's just like a no-brainer. It's like what you do. Like you get into the car, you put on your seatbelt. Like it's just part of the process. So for me, like the habit phase could last a long time until you get to a point where if you don't do it, you feel bad, which is then your lifestyle. Like if you, for me, how I live my life now, I have non-negotiables. They're no longer habits. It's my life.
And we are going to get into those because I love those, especially the one, which I'll mention in a bit.
So anyway, when Creature, I knew that I wanted to do something that was way more aligned with my passion for this sort of wellness lifestyle. I didn't want to work till late hours anymore. I wanted to have a wellness brand that would just align well.
And now tell us about this oatmeal because it's pretty spectacular.
So when these guys told me to eat oatmeal every morning, I literally, I had oatmeal this morning. I had meal one. I've been eating my first meal of the day every single day is oatmeal. I am like the epitome of a creature of habit. I am the creature of habit. Like
powerful knowing your story. Now, even meal one, I never drew the conclusion that this Marcus had you eating oatmeal.
Right.
And now it being called meal one, it's deep.
Yeah, it's the one.
Yeah.
And so for years I would make hot oatmeal, and I would steam I would boil and then steam the oats with chia seeds, flax seeds, and pumpkin seeds. I would cook it slow and low for like 15 minutes, and then I would let it steam out a little bit. And then when it would, I'd take it off the heat, I'd let it steam out, and then I'd take a scoop and a half of protein powder in it, and I'd mix in the protein powder, and I put a little pink Himalayan salt in there, and then I would put some nuts on it, some cacao nibs, maybe some berries. And then on the side, every morning I had my omega-3 fatty acids, my probiotic, digestive enzymes, and vitamin D3. Those were the 4 supplements I took every day. And so when I was thinking about Creatures of Habit, originally it was going to be a restaurant that I was going to ultimately parlay into a consumer good product business. But then the pandemic hit, and I had to pivot.
That's when we talked.
Yeah, right. The pandemic hit. I had to I couldn't open up a brick and mortar business. And so I had to dig to figure out like, oh my gosh, like the plan for Creatures of Habit, the restaurant is done. What am I going to make this business? What am I going to launch this business with? And I was thinking about what can I do that is, super authentic to me, that like really has a mission behind it. And then I was on a run one day, and I was like, oh my God, it's like right under my nose. It's like my oatmeal. I've been eating this shit every freaking day. Like if I could figure out a way to get like that oatmeal, all the ingredients that I use, plus my supplements into a pouch, and you can make it now, it's definitely best made overnight.
Please tell us the macros in it, 'cause they're incredible.
Yeah, so meal one is made with gluten and glyphosate free oats, 30 grams of plant protein, which is a blend of pea and fava, chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, and pink Himalayan salt. It's got the omegas come from the seeds, a really robust, amazing probiotic and digestive enzymes for gut health, and then 2,000 IU of vitamin D3. So those are the ingredients. It's got 30 grams of protein. Typically, each pouch has about 35 grams of carbs and 10 grams of fat.
Only 35 grams of carbs?
Yeah, so it's basically 350 calories.
Oh,
and then the fruit flavors, so we have 7 flavors. The fruit flavors like blueberry banana, peanut butter banana, apple cinnamon, and strawberry walnut cream all have dehydrated fruit in it.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically the best way to make it is you take the pouch, you pour it into a jar, you add 6 ounces of almond, oat, or whatever nut milk you want, or whole milk, like whatever kind of milk.
Or raw milk,
Or
baby.
raw milk, and you mix it really well. Give it a shake. Takes 30 seconds. Cover it. Put it in the fridge. In the morning, or 4 hours later, but really in the morning is whatever. You pull it out. You splash a liquid. Give it a mix. It's ready to go, and it's an amazing full meal. It's not a snack. Like, don't eat it as a snack. I mean, you can, but it's really a meal. It's incredibly satiating. 30 grams of protein first thing in the morning. Like you never have to think about breakfast again, because it's just such a simple, super effective meal that tastes really goddamn good. And that's meal one. And then we launched. So we launched it with that, and knock on wood, like the business.
Oh no, we need wood.
Yeah, where's wood?
When in doubt, you do this.
Yeah.
Oh wait, like a tree.
There we go. Boom. You're not for me, but we're kicking ass, and it's not one of these crazy $150 million businesses out the gate, but we're building a community, we're building a great brand, and it's something that I believe in with every cell in my body. And we're getting people into treatment through the business. I mean, like, I'm doing all the things that I'd hoped to be able to do with Creatures of Habit. And I also get to live my life the way I want to live my life. Like, I work out a lot because I fucking love. Yeah, I love working out. But now it totally makes sense that I'm working out often and creating content around that, because that's the fucking lifestyle I'm trying to promote through this brand. Like, movement, nutrition, and mindset.
It's funny. It's so divine when I look at people's lives and you see like the threading. The oatmeal threading obviously came from Marcus, but even how you have to make it the night before, the discipline and the habit, and that's what's gotten you on par, is like discipline and habit. So it's ironic. It's an ironic food that you have to prepare the night before to have a habit in the morning. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's like, I think anything great comes with sometimes a little suffering or a lot. Like, greatness doesn't come free of charge.
No,
it comes with a little bit.
Nothing is free and nothing is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my 2 favorite mantras.
Yeah.
Okay, so Creatures of Habit. Holy crap. I'm so excited. I was excited when I talked to you about this years ago, but I'm even more excited now. The deeper I've gotten on my health and wellness journey, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to start having this tomorrow. So I'd love to talk a bit more about your spirituality and non-negotiables. Another threading I've seen in your story, because I know one of your non-negotiables, and it's to look in the mirror and say to you, talk to you, have a conversation with yourself and say, hey, I like you. You're a good guy. You're doing all the right things and what have you. And talk about the mirror in that during your rock bottom phase, you look in the mirror and say really awful things to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And words are powerful, and especially how you talk to yourself. So I love seeing that mirror onto like the other side of your journey. So please take us through your spirituality and your non-negotiables.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of morning routine. I feel like morning.
Do you make the bed?
Well, that's a great one. I am always up about an hour and a half before my wife.
Okay, fair.
So I don't typically make the
She make
bed.
the bed?
She always
Okay.
makes the bed.
There you go.
She's a master at making the bed. But if I'm not sleeping at home, if I'm in a hotel, the first thing I do is I make the bed.
Are you kidding me? That's like I mean, I guess sometimes I make it in a hotel, but sometimes I'm like, luxury. The maid's gonna come in.
I like, for whatever reason, I feel like hotel, friends, like wherever I'm at, like I just fucking do it. I make it every day. But my morning routine is really, there's a non-negotiable morning routine for me, and then there is an ideal, like, got all my toys and stuff at home that I can do for my morning routine with like sauna and cold and red light and da 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 da. But prayer is a massive part of my life. It has been since the day Marcus told me that I really needed to get on my knees and ask for help. And my prayer has gotten, far more intricate. And I've kind of created it from just hearing other people talk about prayer. But prayer is a big part of my life. And the one thing I can honestly say that I've been doing very consistently, maybe I've missed, I don't know, maybe a handful of days over the last 20 years, is prayer. And I don't actually have I'm not part of any secular religion. I don't even consider myself really religious, but I have like a deep relationship with God and a higher power that I don't really find it necessary to understand what or why.
Now, all the people I tend to really admire and resonate with, and I guess what's in my frequency is the people who do all this mindset stuff and the power of prayer. This seems to be a constant thing. And I like how you say you're not religious, but you do prayer. So I'm really intrigued by this. If you don't mind me asking, like, is there like a certain mantra or something you recite before the prayer, or do you just get on your knees and just go introspective in meditation sorts, or like
No, I have
how
a
does
prayer,
one
the
do?
same exact prayer that I say every single day.
Which is?
It's a lot.
Give us the first 20 seconds, please.
Okay, so basically I get on my knees and I say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm powerless over drugs and alcohol. My life is unmanageable. I've come to believe in a power greater than myself to restore me to sanity, and I've made a decision to turn my will and life over to your care and direction. God, please help to remove my fears, my insecurities, my character defects, my character assassinations, my wrong thinking, and my rationalizing. And then I go into a super long list of people that I love and that I struggle with. And I ask God to, bless their lives today. And then at the end, I say, please help to set aside everything I think I know so that I can get through this day with an open heart and open mind and a new experience.
I love that. And that whole beginning part, did you come up with that yourself?
Well, so there's the Serenity Prayer, and then there's the
Okay.
first 3 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then the God, please help to remove is like my doing, and then and then I ask God to help me be less self-seeking, more of service, and then I go into my long list of people.
I want to start praying.
You should.
Yeah, it's so in my frequency with all the mindset work. Okay, so we do prayer.
So I do prayer, and then I go right into push-ups. So I call it prayers, push-ups, and poses. And I go right. I do prayers. I do 50 push-ups, and then I stretch. I do yoga poses for 5 minutes, and then depending on where I'm at. So that's my non-negotiable no matter what. Like, I'm gonna go into the bathroom, I'm gonna brush my teeth, wash my face, floss my teeth, take a piss, hit the floor, do my prayers, push-ups, and poses. And then if I'm at home, I'll go right into, my wife doesn't appreciate when I use our master bathroom because I'm up so early. So I'm in the guest bathroom downstairs, and off the guest bathroom is the guest bedroom, and that's where I keep my red light. So I'll go into the bedroom, I'll turn on the red light, and I'll do 20 minutes of meditation in front of the red light. And
Efficient.
yeah. Right after the red light, I walk through the kitchen and I grab 30 ounces of water with some electrolytes and some Shilajit, and I make my way over to the sauna. And I sit in the sauna for about 30 minutes, and that's where I read, and I do some more stretching. And then after the sauna, right across the garage from my sauna is my cold plunge. And I sit in the cold plunge for like 3 to 5 minutes. And then right after the cold plunge, I'm basically done with my morning routine. I have a mirror that I kind of walk past, and I used to do like more affirmation-y kind of shit.
Yeah.
But now I just walk over to the mirror, I make eye contact with myself, I smile, and I say, "You're a good dude, Chernow. Today's your day. Go get it."
Ooh, I love that.
And then I go inside, and at that point, my wife and kids are basically waking up, and I'm on cloud nine. I've just done, a bazillion things to help me feel confident and accomplished, and like I've won the day already, and it's only
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning.
Oh, it's only uphill from there. And this you attribute to all mindset. This sets you up with the right mindset.
This is all
keeps you
mindset
on-
stuff.
Yes.
All mindset stuff. And so I used to, years ago, wake up and, I'd do my prayers, but I would go right to the gym, and I'd be in the gym by 5:45.
Wow.
And I would work out for whatever it was. And then I'd come home and I, sort of just do my family stuff. But now, because I'm an entrepreneur and because I've put in the work and I feel like I deserve to have, like, my fitness is part of my job. Like, I schedule fitness in later in the day. So it's in my calendar.
It is part of the job.
Yeah, it's in my calendar. It's like an hour and a half every day. I do it. Some days I'll do it at 9 a.m. Some days I'll do it at 11. But I get my fitness in a little bit later on in the day. And by the way, like, that is a pretty extensive morning routine that puts me in the most fucking, like, prominent place to get my day going.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But when I'm traveling, it literally is bathroom, stuff, and then prayers, push-ups, and poses, and then I typically will either just go to, like, if I'm traveling, maybe I'll get my workout in right away, or if I can't get my workout in right away, like, I have like a little skincare thing that I do now, which I love, which honestly is kind of like something that
meditative.
I actually love it. Like,
Yeah.
I had no idea, about a year and a half ago, my wife was like, you take such good care of yourself, but I've never seen you wash your face or put a moisturizer on your face. And I was like, you're right. I don't, like, I wash my face in the shower, with, like, the soap that I got there. She's like, I think you should start washing your face, like, with, like, face stuff, and then moisturizing it. I was like, all right.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
And now I'm like hooked. Now I got like a 4-step process. And
So one last question to wrap this up. You have really, what an incredible life, what an incredible journey. And no matter where you are in your journey, it all happens for a very reason. Like, I feel like none of this stuff would have happened if it wasn't for your past, and same with everyone else. But a real constant in your life has been your beautiful wife of 19 years. What is the secret to a successful, long, happy marriage?
Communication at all cost, period.
I love that.
That's it. A lot of communication hurts. Like, communication is painful. And
did you say you guys over communicate to avoid any sort of, like, resentment and build up and what have you?
I don't think we actually over communicate. I think we communicate. And look, you're in a relationship for years and years, right? There's things that are going to come up that most people are uncomfortable talking about,
Totally.
right? Like, when you're in a relationship for a long time, sex isn't as much as it used to be, right? And
you communicate about stuff like that.
100%. Like, oh, you know what? Like, we're
it.
not having as much sex as, like, we could have, right? Like, I think partners will go months without, just, like, they're uncomfortable about it.
Needs.
Yeah, like, like, you gotta, like, so, like, things like that, and, like, oh, how we want to parent our children, right? Like, if you're not aligned on it, you're gonna fight about it.
Yeah.
And not everybody, like, she can't read my mind, I can't read her mind, even though we probably can at this point. But, like, like, you need to talk about it, right? Like, technology and kids, what is it? Like, what are you comfortable with? What am I comfortable with? Like, if we both agree right away, boom, it's done. But, like, if we don't agree, how do we get to that place? Communication. It's like it is absolutely necessary. And the truth is that, like, in the beginning of the pandemic, we had never spent as much time together as that, right? Like, we were all hunkered down into the apartment every day, all day. And we were with the kids all the time. It was like they didn't have school, they couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't go anywhere, and shit was getting fucking tough.
Love the one you're with.
Yeah. And so she started saying things to me that was like annoying her about me. And it sucked to hear it. She was like, I have to tell you this. She's like, you
Good
make
for
this
her,
noise. She
though.
was like, you do this. And I was like, what? She's like, you have to, like, I have to tell you. She's like, you just like, you'll be talking and then you just go,
Like,
and she's like, I can't handle that. She's like, you need to be, I have to tell you because it's driving me nuts.
it's painful, but you know what? It would have built on her.
By the way, if she never mentioned it, I wouldn't have known it. And like, if it was killing her, like chances are it would have manifested in some other way, and it would have
100%.
Yeah.
And she would have started to like get more and more annoyed by you, just like little build up stuff.
Totally.
Just
And so I think having the courage to communicate at all costs,
without limitations.
without limitations, and just feeling like if you're on the fence, hop off the fence, right? Like if you're like, oh, should I talk to them about that? I know it's like, is it just me? No, just you have to have a
Right.
partner in your life that, in my opinion, for a successful relationship long term, you guys have to commit to communicating, even and especially when it hurts or when you're scared, you know? And so I think that really is the key to the success. And then, I will also say that, like, I really do feel passionate about this because romantic relationships don't have to be hot and heavy, right? Like it doesn't have to be.
Goes through
If
phases.
if you're with somebody solely because of that, like of sex, like the relationship isn't going to last forever, right? Like there's got to be more, right?
100%.
And so, in my opinion, when you're in a long-term relationship, that stuff is going to, like, you're going to have to check it. Commit to doing it, though.
Yeah.
You know?
All in or all out.
Yeah, so you got to commit to it. In my opinion, it's like you say, hey, even if you're tired, even if I'm tired, like, we're going to do it. And then, I think that's really important in long-term relationships. So I think communication in long-term romantic relationships is absolutely necessary. And I also do think even the little things is like, every night we have a routine. I just posted about this. Our routine at night is like whoever puts the kids down. And then when the kids are down, like, we are together.
Oh.
We're together for at least an hour and we're watching a show or whatever. But it's not that we're just together. Like, I could be sitting.
Present.
Well, we're not. I touch her. She
Yeah.
touches me. I grab her hand. I'm next to her. I could sit like this and just watch something on Netflix, or I could just put my arm around my fucking wife and, like, make her know that I'm here. Like, I'm here, babe.
I love that.
And so I think, like, even little things like that. You're walking down the street.
All about the little things.
The little things. You're walking down the street. Like, you don't have to hold hands, but you can. And you should.
Life's short.
Yeah. And it could be like, I just think those little things for successful, happy, they all add up and they all make for, you can get through anything,
That is so beautiful. Oh, I love it. Michael Chernow, where can we find you?
At Michael Chernow everywhere, and at Creatures of Habit with a K. If you want, you should definitely give Creatures of Habit a shot. I'm
straight up ordering it tonight, so I'm really excited.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. I think it's a great product, it's a great brand, it means a lot, and so Creatures of Habit with a K on social media and creaturesofhabit.com, and that's it. If you're in New York City and you want to get a good meatball, the Meatball Shop is awesome. And
it actually is. I've had it.
And fish tacos at Seamore's are also fantastic, so you can go check out those two restaurants.
Love it. You know what? I never clap at the end of interviews, but I have to clap.
Aw, thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely, this is awesome.